And the more we step into our creativity, find joy, play, and have fun there, the more we open up, coming back to ourselves.
It's my absolute pleasure to introduce to you my friend Gillian Higginson, who has written this gorgeous book and illustrated it.
It's called Chubby Tales and Timeless Truths by Buddha Belly. And Buddha Belly is based on my rather chubby cat, because he really does have a wonderfully big heart.
His name is Moonshine.
Yeah.
Isn't moonshine illegal alcohol in America? Yes, it is.
Yes, I never thought of that one, but yes, his name is Moonshine.
So funny.
I'd always known that I was going to write a book. I did a dragonfly workshop. While I was doing that, this whole vision almost started to drop in of how I would love to illustrate and write a book for my grandchildren, Madison, Logan, and Layla. It evolved because as I was doing the illustrations, as I jotted down the first points from which the book grew, it felt like this needs to be something that needed to be shared. It's about living a life that is full of joy, full of fun, full of play, a life that is bountiful and abundant. And so there's an energy that comes through in the book, I believe. I felt very much like this was a channeled bit of information. And in fact, when I first sat down to write this, there were 3 books that came through. So it's a trilogy. For the past 25 years, I've worked in the field of energy healing. And this started fairly late in my life. At age 13 or maybe younger, I used to find myself doing out of body or having out of body experiences. And I always knew I was connected to something far, I want to say bigger than just the physical form. I started with things like Reiki and then moved into body talk and numerous modalities. I also completed a um, coaching diploma in Northern Ireland. I completed anatomy and physiology. For 25 years, I've worked with individuals and I've worked in groups. I'm also a wife, a mother to 3 gorgeous children, and a grandmother.
And this book is dedicated to them.
It is. Mm.
Now, you've forgotten something really important in this. And by the way, there's a heart cloud just floating past as I said this. You're an artist, but you forgot to mention that because actually you illustrate your book.
Yes.
Tell us,
Yes, I do.
when did you first start drawing? When did you start tapping in to painting and drawing?
So at school, I used to enjoy drawing and painting, but I didn't really have much confidence as far as it was concerned then. And we had a fantastic art teacher. So my first medium was oils. So I painted prolifically at that time. So I have quite a few pieces still in oil. It's always been my desire to explore more, to bring more texture, to maybe do, mixed media. So I then went overseas to Northern Ireland, didn't pick up a paintbrush for years and years, came back and found another wonderful art teacher who I joined, and there I was doing acrylic and oil. So it was quite interesting that. And I loved doing it too. I always thought I would never touch watercolors. So when the dragonfly uh, workshop came along, I decided it would be fun just to play. And if it doesn't look so good, so what? It's just playing. And I so loved it. that I started this journey with illustrating the book. And really, my story kind of, there were points I downloaded one morning. But besides that, there was the illustrations which were telling a story and really developing the story through the illustrations. And I loved it so much. It just brought me such joy that one of the deepest learnings through that was that when we find our joy, we really open up a whole treasure chest that just completely expands our view of the world and our life.
When did you first discover what Buddha belly looks like? Did Buddha belly come before the illustration, or did Buddha belly come from the illustration?
Buddha belly came from the illustration, basically, because there was a picture in my mind of this ginger cat. Ours isn't ginger, but ginger cat that I pictured. And he was just round and gorgeous, really delightful. And you could picture him being very serene and at the same time being very wise. So a lot of the message is about inner wisdom. It's a book that anybody can read, you know. I love children's books. I also love movies. I often go in and I watch Moana or something like that, that I absolutely love. So maybe it's that getting to that inner child and just having fun and playing.
And how
Yeah.
did that feel when you first were introduced to Buddha belly?
Wow, that's a good question, actually, because how I felt was I knew him. I knew him already. That that it's almost like he was there all along. And I had just not found him yet until I illustrated him.
So do you think he found you?
Yes, I do.
And what is the most important message that Buddha belly is telling us?
To breathe, to be in your heart space. So, in other words, remember who you are. Find your inner wisdom through your heart. Um, love yourself. Dance. I know you do belly dancing, and when I was doing that, there was this thought of you actually at the time when I was busy doing it. Um, so it's almost like all the things that bring you back to heart um, are part of this, like dancing, like being in nature, like swimming, everything, all parts of nature and movement
Yeah.
are with it.
And I mean, I haven't met Buddha belly yet. I'm very excited to, and we are going to show some images through the film. But what I wanted to say to you is that what I'm seeing a lot of more at the moment is just pause, just
Yeah.
pause.
Yeah.
And we have been conditioned to run, 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 run. Busy, 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 busy. Hard, 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 hard work, hard work, hard work. Keep doing, keep
Mm,
doing, keep doing. Try, 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 try. And I am exhausted from trying. I've been
mm,
feel like I've been this in this wheel, just trying and trying and trying, and it hasn't helped. The amount of hours and energy that I've put into trying and doing doesn't necessarily pay off. Sometimes it's that pausing and reflecting. In fact, I wouldn't say sometimes. I would say every time. It's that
yeah.
pausing and reflecting and just going, you know what? I've done everything I can do, and now I'm going to go for a walk.
Mm,
But we've been conditioned that we should feel guilty if we go for the walk, or if we go and dance on our balcony, or if we pull out our paints and brushes, you know?
mm,
So you have an incredible journey to where you've got to here. People are going to look at you and think, wow, she's so serene, so calm. But what people don't know is how you got to this space.
oh,
So let's take people back a little bit and talk about something really major that happened to you when you were in your early 30s?
I was 31 when my first husband was shot and killed during an armed robbery in Johannesburg. And yeah, it was the biggest shock. Um, it felt like at the time, like the whole of my future was white because we had a future planned together. And so that no longer existed. I could choose anything I wanted, but I was terrified to choose anything at the time. So there was deep heartache, and I had also had two young children. One was 13 at the time, and one was 8. I kept on thinking I'm moving forward, and then I would feel like the grief is still there because there was huge transformation through that process. What this taught me is that even death is a gift. I could have stayed the way I was before and not moved into this whole new way of life, or I could move forward. And the only choice there was from what I could see, because of my children, etc., was to move forward. And so also through all of that, I took to reading huge amounts on death and dying, what happens after death, the evolving soul as such. Um, I read so many books because I wanted to know more. I knew there was this bigger picture. And while we're on it, there were some really weird things that happened after his death. Like I was sitting one day, we had a business and he used to do tapes to play in the business. In those days, it was those old cassette tapes. And the last tape he ever recorded was numbered 33. And the last song he recorded on that tape, I was sitting one day speaking to a friend, and the hi-fi, which we had at that time, just came on and started playing that song. I even get shivers now when I think of it. Things used to fly out the cupboards. I realized that he was probably a very evolved soul. We had challenges at times, but that was in our physical element. He was a very evolved soul, and that he was sending messages and visiting us still in some way.
So how did that make you feel that he was trying to connect with you?
I felt comfort, actually. I felt comfort that there was more to, because that's one of the things too, is when I first saw him at the funeral parlor, I realized I actually shouted it out loud because I was with my mom at the time. And I shouted, "That's not him." And I'm sure that the people inside must have thought, "Oh my gosh, we brought the wrong body in here." Yes. But that wasn't the case. It was more that I realized he wasn't in there. That was just a shell. It wasn't the essence of who he was not in there. And so my belief is that there's this constant connection and there's no limitation. We can be anywhere at any time. Even in our physical bodies now, if we look at the way things are changing, we could be anywhere, anytime, especially during dream time.
As I was going to say, where do we go to when we sleep is my very big question. I come back and I have definitely been somewhere and I want to go back. It's
Mm,
an incredible place. And it's a peaceful place and it's colorful and there's so much happening and I love it. I love my dreams.
mm,
I'd like to just go back to you just to talk a bit more about death because we don't talk about death in our
mm,
culture. It's something we avoid as much as possible. So I'll just talk to you about my experience when you said he wasn't there. My dad died, and I only saw him 24 hours later because I was somewhere else. I had to travel back, and he was on a trolley being wheeled off to for an autopsy. So he wasn't all beautiful, with uh, nicely dressed and decorated and flowers in the room and candles. It wasn't like that at all. He was on a trolley. And I was absolutely terrified to see him. And he had had a heart attack, okay? And so eventually I was in the room on my own, and they were saying, come on, we need to go, we need to go, because everybody was waiting to move him. And I was in this very cold, empty space. And eventually I just couldn't look. I really, really struggled. And then I looked at him, and that was it. He wasn't there. And I was like, this flesh, I know it's my father. I know my father lived there, but he's not there anymore. And that was my big, big, big lesson again from the universe to talk about what is spirit and what is soul. And after all, we are the body that's living this experience. Yeah, we're the vessel. We're the vessel for this experience. And that was a very big lesson. What is your uh, understanding and experience after the loss of your husband?
So I'd say my understanding is there is so much more. We are so much more. In fact, we are powerful beyond our wildest dreams. We're powerful. And I don't say that in a forceful, powerful way. That's not what I'm speaking about. I'm speaking about, I'm going to use the word light. Our light is powerful. And our cells are all active and powerful if we remember who we truly are. We are part of the whole. So if you think of nature and you see how abundant and how connected everything is, that's us as well. We are also part of nature. If you think of that sea, that stormy sea, that's where we are sometimes. So we have multiple layers as well, but the essence of who we are is this magnificent, magnificent light
And
and
this
love.
and the stages of grief. How did you cope with that, Gillian, with two small children?
I don't know if I went through all the stages that they so commonly say there are. I didn't feel, I wasn't happy, obviously, that he was killed by somebody. Um, but I didn't feel an incredible hate, funny enough. Everybody would ask me, are you feeling this hate? And I didn't, because from what I was learning was there's almost like a, if I can put it this way, I think there's a contract of some sort. We come here, we know, maybe we don't know exactly when we're going, but on some level, we are ready, because my sister passed as well when she was 30. And in fact, if I go back to my husband, he said, and he said this multiple times, I know I'm not going to be here until I'm old. I know that if I go now, I would be very happy. I've accomplished what I needed to in this time. So there was almost like that preparation, but I didn't want to hear it at the time, obviously. And my sister said to her husband before she left to travel to Zambia that she took a week off before she went. She sorted all the paperwork out. She said, everything's filed. You'll find it exactly where it needs to be. And so you can place your hands on anything if anything happens to me. It's almost like there's a unconscious knowing, maybe. if you want to put it that way. There's something, a thread that knows on some level that something's going to happen. And I believe this is part of what we may have chosen.
So when my dad died, I was I'm from Zimbabwe, and I was in a place called Kariba. Something was really not right. And I took my little boy and we went to it was early, like before 6. And I took him onto the beach. There's sand and by the lake. And I was sitting and I was playing with him in the sand, and I was thinking, I'm falling apart. I've never had a nervous breakdown, but I think I'm having one. And I don't know why. It was the weirdest thing ever. And, Gillian, that was the same time my dad was having a heart attack and dying. And he was, I don't know how many kilometers away, 400 kilometers away, in the days before mobile phones and everything. So something I connected, and it was a terrible feeling. Either he was scared to leave me, or I'm not sure, because he was very, very ready to go. My dad, after my mom died, he wanted to go. He didn't want to live. His heart was broken. He was the classic, he died from a broken heart. So it's not like he wanted to stay. Maybe he was worried about me because obviously I was a single mum. Whatever that was, I had this terrible, terrible feeling. Did you have any similar experience?
And I was very deep in thought on the morning that my husband died. And it must have been when he was dying, because I was just sort of tidying up and doing general things. Now, I have a thing that whenever something plays on my mind, I clean. So I will clean the house, so that I was busy cleaning basically. And I was deep in contemplation that morning. I remember that. My youngest son was supposed to go he wanted to go with his father, and his father had said no. And normally he would take him. He said, no, you stay here with your mom today. So he could have got, shot in the crossfire as well. With my sister, I felt deep sadness, but I couldn't explain it. And so I think we have a sense at some level that something's going down, but we may not know what exactly it is.
As you are Gillian now, and if you could have gone back to Gillian at 31, who was in absolute state of shock, what would you tell yourself? What would make it easier to have known then that you didn't know?
I'd say initially everything's going to be okay. You can't always see you can't see the path forward at that point. But on some level, if you knew it was always working out for you, you would be able to trust it.
I think when we look back, we can see, like, I know I am who I am because of all the experiences that I've had, good and bad. I know that sure, there are things that I wish I could have changed, but there's no point in regrets. Every part of those experiences has created who I am to now. And the death of your husband has shifted and changed something in you. What would you say? What would you say that is?
It shifted my perspective. And so I was prepared for a long time as I'd mentioned before, when I was in my teens, I was having out-of-body experiences. I always had very deep dreams. I knew I was connected. In my 20s and into my early 30s, I'd left that part of me behind. And so when he passed, I felt shocked back into that world where I started asking questions more, and I was prepared to go back there. I was prepared to go deeper.
Talk about the out-of-body experiences at 13. How would you describe it if to somebody who's never had that kind of experience? How would you describe that?
Basically, I'm trying to think back actually exactly.
Were you in sleep or were you awake when this happened?
I was busy doing something with other people at the time or speaking to someone, and suddenly I'd feel myself rising up out of my body.
Did you say anything to your mom or to anyone about this experience that you're having?
No, I was terrified. We'd grown up in a very religious household, and my belief was that if I mentioned anything at that point in time, they would lock me away. And so I'd mentioned it to nobody. Nobody knew, no friends knew, nothing, until actually after my husband passed. Then my mom and I were speaking one day, and I mentioned that I had had these experiences. And she said to me, "Well, why didn't you say anything?" And I said, "Well, I didn't want to be locked up, that's for sure." So I kind of eventually, it carried on for a good few years, I'd say maybe 3 to 4 years. And then I managed to start suppressing it. And so it was the suppression that took me through and more surface level living through the next few years until I was in my 30s.
Because I used to always see these beings and they kept calling me. And I describe them as, you know, a pedestrian crossing sign. They have the little man. That's what they looked like. I lived in a house with a long passage, and from the age of like 11, I was living on my own down that side of the passage. My parents were in the other section, and I'd be too scared to go down the passage. My family, I would imagine, just thought, oh yeah, you know, she's just making it up or whatever. But here I am at 56, and these memories are very firm. They have not gone away. And I think it's really fascinating that and I have all sorts of other experiences that I've had since then and still do. But we can't talk about those things. Like you said, we'll be locked up. People think we're crazy, you know?
I think it was even more so in those times because I think, okay, for me, the way I look at things now, I believe humanity is going through a huge, huge change, and at present, and has been for quite some time. And so a lot of humanity has upgraded, if I can put it that way, the maybe their belief systems, their perspective, their understanding of who they are. And so the world has changed quite a lot ever since lockdown happened, etc. I think there's been a rapid shift upwards.
So on an energetic level, where are we in 2025, do you think? They're talking a lot. I'm seeing a lot about there's big shifts coming, there's big changes coming. I think the Christians will think, okay, well, Jesus is coming. Every religion will have their own idea of what that is. What do you think is are we needing to do to shift and change?
Okay. So I believe we need to live more from the heart. And that is what the book is about, is living more from the heart. And love is the emotion or the vibration, more the vibration, because love from the mind is not the same as love vibration. Is going to be first and foremost our go-to or our way of living. And so more, we spoke just now about pushing, having to work, having to force this, you know, that's going to shift. And I know like at the moment, there's a lot of chaos in the world itself, but this is an invitation for us to go deeper, even with that in play. When we shift this, the outside world will change as well. And so the more gentle, more ease, more fun, more play, more joy, and love, again, is where I believe we are heading. So as you think it will be, and it'll be in an instant. It doesn't have to take years or months. The power that is within us, the harmonious power, okay, it's not the power to push, and is that space where we will find ourselves thinking something and miraculously it is already there. So if we want more joy, we create it from this moment.
So the power of our thoughts.
Definitely the power of our thoughts, the power of our feelings.
And the power of our word.
Yeah.
Whatever we think is our reality.
Mm.
So people listening to this are going to be thinking, no wonder my reality sucks. How do I change my thoughts? And what advice would you give?
I would say start spending more time in nature, being still and listening, allowing that essence to drop within, or connecting to that essence. Find ways to be grateful. Grateful not just for the huge thing. Gratitude or appreciation comes in the smallest of things. Being grateful that you actually have food in your belly today. Being grateful that you live in a beautiful place, or you have shelter, or for the simplest of things, waking up and breathing. Being able to take a deep breath in and a release deeper. And just moment by moment, finding the things to find gratitude in.
What is going to happen to the people who are on this perpetual cycle of materialism, capitalism? What do you think is going to happen?
I have no idea, is the honest truth. I have no idea, because not everybody who has a lot or is necessarily, they're also on a journey. And so some may not open to this new way, and that's their choice. What we will be seeing is that your choice is very much your choice. So you can choose to continue a life that is superficial, that is your choice. Or you can choose to go deeper, that is also your choice. It doesn't mean, here's the thing, is because if we make one thing wrong, we immediately start splitting within ourselves. There is resistance, there is, what's the word, when there's conflict within us. And so we also see that on the outside when we're still in that space. So basically, each person has the choice to come home to themselves and to find the love within their hearts, or within that connection, that deeper rooted connection. And we find it in many different ways. There is no absolute right way as far as religion is concerned or spirituality is concerned. My mom was deeply religious, and yet when we spoke, we realized I came from maybe a different perspective. However, that doesn't mean I'm not open to religion. I came from a different perspective, and we found mutual ground. We found that we were speaking the same language, whether she believed in Christianity or I believed in something else. So there is common ground, and we can all find that space and love being connected.
But just to say, it's been a really peaceful and gentle conversation. And I think people will really relate a lot to what you've said. Thank you for sharing your experience of your husband and your sister. The great message for other women or people who have lost their partners or who are in grief right now is that, you will be okay and you will find your way through this. And whatever situation is going on in our lives, it's going to get better. Those clouds will pass. And I think right now we really need to believe that, and we need to have faith that it's going to change.